You look in a mirror every day. You think you understand what it does. It shows you your reflection. Simple. Except it's not simple at all, because when you really look at what's happening when you ask the right questions, mirrors reveal something disturbing about how we think. They show us the exact point where our intuition stops working. Here's the problem. Everyone notices. Stand in front of a mirror. You part your hair on the right side. The person in the mirror has their hair parted on the left side. You raise your right hand. The mirror person raises their left hand. Left and right are switched. That seems clear. But now, look at the top of your head. It's still at the top in the mirror. Look at your feet, still at the bottom. So the mirror switches left and right, but it doesn't switch up and down. How does the mirror know which is which? Think about that for a second. The mirror is just a piece of glass with some silver on the back. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't know about human conventions. It doesn't know that we call one direction left and another right and another up. So why does it seem to respect some of these directions and not others? What's the mirror actually doing that creates this asymmetry most people never get. Past this point, they accept that. Mirrors just work that way. Left and right get flipped. Up and down don't. That's just how mirrors are. But that answer is wrong. It's not explaining anything. It's just describing what you see. And when you're doing physics, describing what you see is not enough. You have to understand what's actually happening. Let me make the problem worse. Lie down on the floor. Now look at the mirror from that position. Your hair, which was on the right side of your head, is now on the top side of your head from the mirrors. Perspective, the direction you call. Left, right when standing is now up. Down when lying down. But the mirror still shows your hair on the opposite side. So the mirror isn't really switching left and right. It's doing something else entirely. Here's another way to see the problem. Put a word on a piece of paper. Hold it up to the mirror. The word is backwards, right. Now take that same piece of paper and don't flip it. Just rotate it. Hold it up above your head with the writing facing the floor. Now look up at it. Is it backwards? No. Same orientation. Different axis of rotation. Different result. The mirror is doing something. But what? The answer is going to seem stupid at first, and then it's going to seem profound. The mirror doesn't switch left and right. It doesn't switch up and down. What the mirror does is switch front and back. That's it. That's the only thing it does. Light comes from in front of the mirror, hits the mirror, and bounces straight back. The front of you is still the front in the mirror, But what was behind you is now shown as behind the mirror image to everything. Along that one axis, the axis, perpendicular to the mirror's surface, gets reversed. But wait, if that's true, why do we see left and right is flipped? Here's where human psychology enters. Physics. When you look at someone, you automatically imagine yourself in their position. You don't imagine being pushed through them backwards. You imagine walking around and facing them. When another person faces you, their right hand is on your left side because they walked around. Their left is on your right. We're so used to this that we do it automatically. When you look at your mirror image, your brain does the same thing. It imagines that person walking around to face you. If that had happened, their right and left would be swapped relative to yours. But that's not what happened. The mirror didn't walk anyone around. The mirror pushed you through yourself backwards. Your nose, which was pointing north, is now shown as pointing south. Your back, which was facing south, is now shown as facing north. Front and back reversed. That's all. Let me prove this to you. Take your right hand pointed east. Look. In the mirror. The hand in the mirror is pointing east. Same direction. Now point. Your hand north toward the mirror. The hand in the mirror points south away. From you. The east-west axis is preserved. The up-down axis is preserved. Only the north-south axis, the axis. Perpendicular to the mirror is reversed. The mirror is not doing anything. Mysterious. It's just reversing along. One axis. So why does everyone think left and right are reversed? Because we insist on interpreting the mirror image as another person. And when we imagine another person in that position, we imagine them having walked around to face us. We project human behavior onto a simple physical process. The mirror doesn't know about walking around. It doesn't know about people. It just bounces light straight back. We're the ones creating the confusion by insisting on a human-centered interpretation. This is where it gets interesting. This exact same mistake happens everywhere. Physics. We take our human experience, our human intuitions, our human ways of categorizing the world, and we project them onto nature. And then we get confused when nature doesn't cooperate. We think nature is being weird, but nature is just being nature. We're the ones being weird. Take the concept of up and down. You think you know what those mean? Up is toward the sky. Down is toward the ground. But what does that mean on a spherical earth? What's up in Australia? It's not the same direction as up in New York. Up isn't a direction in space. Up is away from the center of the earth. It's defined by gravity, but we treat it like it's absolute, like it's built into space itself, or take left and right. These aren't properties of space. They're properties of objects with a particular orientation. A screw has a handedness. Your hand has a handedness, but space itself doesn't care about left or right. If you describe all the laws of physics to someone, and you describe particles and forces and fields, you could never tell then which direction is left without, pointing at something specific. Left and right are labels we impose, not features of reality. The mirror problem reveals this. We think the mirror is doing something strange because we're using human labels that aren't really physical. Left and right aren't fundamental. They are convenient labels for humans with bilateral symmetry who move forward in a preferred direction. The mirror doesn't. Respect those labels because nature doesn't respect those labels. Nature only respects actual physical directions in space. Here's the deep part. This happens with everything we try to understand. We start with human experience. We develop intuitions based on being human-sized objects moving at human speeds in human environments. Then we try to apply those intuitions to things that aren't human-sized. Atoms, light, the universe, and our intuitions fail. Not because nature is weird, but because we're asking the wrong questions. You ask, why does the mirror flip left and right, but not up and down? That question has human assumptions baked into it. It assumes. There's something special about left, right versus up, down. It assumes the mirror is doing something to these directions, but the mirror doesn't know about your directions. It's just reflecting light. The real question is, why do humans interpret this reflection as having certain symmetries? And that's a question about human psychology, not about mirrors. This is why physics is hard. Not because nature is complicated, although it is, but because we have to learn to stop asking human questions. We have to learn to ask questions that nature can answer. What is actually moving? What forces are actually acting? What is actually conserved? Those are physics questions. Questions like, why does this seem weird? To me, aren't physics questions. They're psychology questions. The mirror forces you to confront this. You look at it, you see something that seems wrong, and you have to untangle what's actually happening from what you expect to happen. You have to separate the physics from the interpretation. And when you do, when you really do that, you realize how much of what you thought was understanding reality was actually just fitting reality into human categories. Now, let's push this further. Think about how we understand anything. You look at something, light bounces off. It enters your eye, gets detected by your retina. Signals go to your brain, and you experience seeing. But what are you actually seeing? You're not seeing the object You're seeing light that interacted with the object. You're seeing a pattern of electromagnetic waves. Your brain constructs what you think is the object from that pattern. The mirror just makes this obvious. When you look at your hand directly, you're seeing light that bounced off your hand and traveled to your eye. When you look at your hand in a mirror, you're seeing light that bounced off your hand, bounced off the mirror, and then traveled to your eye. The mirror adds one bounce. That's the only difference. But we treat the direct view as real and the mirror view as somehow different as a reflection. They're both reflections. They are both patterns of light. This gets at something fundamental about knowledge. Everything you know about the external world comes through some kind of interaction. Light interacting with your eyes. Sound interacting with your ears. Molecule interacting with receptors in your nose. You never have direct access to reality. You only have access to the effects reality has on you. You're always looking at reflections, always seeing interactions, always interpreting signals. And here's the problem. Your brain is very good at constructing a model of reality from those signals. Too good, so good that you forget you're looking at a model. You think you're seeing reality directly. You think you understand how things work because your model works. But your model is built from human sensors detecting human scale. Interactions. It's optimized for human survival, not for truth. The mirror breaks that illusion just a little bit. It shows you something that looks almost right, but not quite. And in that gap, in that wrongness, you can start to see the difference between reality and your model of reality. You can start to see where your intuitions come from. They come from your model, not from reality. Reality is just light bouncing. Your model says that person is facing me with their left and right swap. Reality. And it doesn't say that. You say that. This is why mirrors are the limit of how we understand reality. Not because mirrors are complicated. They're simple. They just reverse one direction. But that simple reversal is enough to break your expectations. It's enough to show that. Your expectations are not reality. And if something as simple as a mirror can reveal that, what happens when you try to understand things that are much further from human experience? What happens when you try to understand atoms, where things are too small to see and behave in ways that have no human analog? What happens when you try to understand the universe where things are too big and too slow and too far away? What happens when you try to understand time which you can't even point at? Your intuitions fail. Your models fail. And you have to build new ones from scratch. But here's the thing. You can build new models. Humans have done it. We figured out atoms, even though we can't see them. We figured out relativity, even though we can't travel at light speed. We figured out quantum mechanics, even though nothing in our daily experience behaves that way. We did it by letting go of our intuitions and following the mathematics and the experiments, by accepting that reality doesn't care about our expectations. The mirror is a gift. It's simple enough that you can understand exactly what's happening. Light bounces. That's it. But it's surprising enough that you notice your expectations were wrong. And in that noticing, you can learn something. Not about mirrors, about yourself, about how you think about the difference between how I expect things to work and how things actually work. So the next time you look in a mirror and something seems wrong, don't dismiss it. Stop. Ask. What's actually happening? Not what seems to be happening, not what you expect to be happening. What is light doing? Where is it going? What is reversing and what isn't? Strip away the human interpretation and look at the physics. That's how you start to see past your intuitions. And once you learn to do that with mirrors, you can do it with everything else. You can look at heat and stop thinking about it as a substance and start thinking about it as motion. You can look at electricity and stop thinking about it as a fluid and start thinking about it as fields. You can look at time and stop thinking about it as flowing and start thinking about it as a coordinate. Every time you peel away a human interpretation and see the actual physics, you understand reality a little bit better. That's what physics is. It's not memorizing formulas. It's not solving problems. It's learning to see past your own mind. It's learning to ask questions that nature can answer instead of questions that make you feel comfortable. It's accepting that reality is under no obligation to make sense to. Your job is to figure out how it actually works, whether that matches your intuitions or not. Mirrors teach you that. They teach you that your intuitions are not reality. They teach you that reality is simpler than you. Think and weirder than you expect. They teach you that the questions you ask matter more than the answers you get. They teach you to be suspicious of your own understanding. And that suspicion, that willingness to question what seems obvious, that's the beginning of actually understanding anything, not just mirrors, not just physics, anything. Because everything you think you understand is filtered through the same human brain with the same human limitations, if you can learn to see past that, even for a moment, you can start to see what's really there. The mirror shows you your face, but if you look carefully, it shows you much more than that. It shows you the limits of human intuition. It shows you how we project meaning onto meaningless processes. It shows you the difference between understanding and familiarity. And it shows you that reality doesn't reverse left and right. It never did. We just convinced ourselves it did, because we couldn't help but imagine ourselves walking around to face ourselves. That's all it ever was. A failure of imagination disguised as a mystery of nature